3 spine-chilling true janitor horror stories that reveal the sinister secrets of haunted buildings. Ellen stood before the crumbling school, shadows swirling in the late evening light. She had heard the whispers, felt the weight of 1,000 untold stories lingering in the air. Alone, a 35-year-old single mother, she gripped her mop and bucket tightly, its plastic handle cutting into her palm. The town's chilling reputation echoed in her mind. This wasn't just any job, it was a haunting nightmare wrapped in faded walls and dusty halls. As she embarked on her first night shift, the air thickened with tension. Dim fluorescent lights flickered, casting ghostly shadows that seemed to move on their own. Her heart raced at the soft sound of someone or something shuffling in an empty classroom. It was just her imagination, she told herself. But that voice, that laughter echoing from the past, sent shivers down her spine. A chill gust blew through a window, slamming it closed with a heavy bang. She jumped, startled. Her instincts screamed for her to leave, but she couldn't. 2 children depended on her. She swallowed hard and forced herself to continue, brooms sweeping the floor, steadying her breath. In the grasp of night, the atmosphere shifted. Creepy symbols scratched into the paint on the walls began to catch her eye. They twisted and turned into grotesque faces, mocking her with silent screams. Her pulse quickened, each creak of the floorboards deepening her disquiet. She fought off memories of the community's warnings about the school's past, the rumors about the janitor who had disappeared without a trace, the parents searching for lost children. She shook her head, those were just stories. At least she wanted to believe they were. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the clock struck midnight, the moans of the wind crescendoed, like anguished cries of lost souls. Ellen went into a classroom filled with rotten desks and shattered dreams. The air was thick, permeated by a sense of dread. Suddenly, a shadow darted past her vision. Panic surged through her, heart pounding like a war drum. Had someone else entered the building? She could feel the walls closing in, the whispers rising, forming a chilling chant. Then, she found it a hidden room disguised behind a tattered map of the school. Inside were photographs of children, eyes wide with terror, paired with letters that spoke of unimaginable horrors, abuse, tragedy, and betrayal. The school had once been a prison for lost hopes and broken dreams. With every detail she uncovered, the weight of her own secrets echoed back at her, intertwining her fate with the dark history. As she stood rooted in terror, the chilling realization gripped her, she wasn't just cleaning a school. She was uncovering something sinister lurking in her community, something that had been seeking vengeance for too long. The walls whispered her name, and she could almost feel the fingers of the long-dead janitor twitch around her throat, threatening to pull her under. Her breath caught when a thunderous crash echoed behind her, snapping her from the haze of fear. She turned back to the door, heart racing. The dark hallway stretched endlessly before her, shadows writhing. Which way would lead to safety? Or had the darkness already claimed her? Ellen's heart pounded, she was spiraling deeper into unspeakable horrors. Would she uncover the dreadful truth, or would she become just another ghost in this school of legends? Ellen's heart thudded in her chest as the echo of the crash reverberated through the empty hall. Was it just a fluke? A piece of debris falling from the ceiling? Or was something malevolent lurking, waiting for her? Every nerve in her body screamed to run, but her feet felt glued to the floor. Drawing a shaky breath, she stepped cautiously toward the door. Shadows danced around her, stretching and curling like sinister vines. Was it only her imagination, or did they quiver as though alive? The whispers grew louder, taking on a mocking tone. The children trapped in the photographs were mocking her. "Run," a voice whispered, soft yet urgent, as if the very walls were pleading with her. Ellen shook her head and turned back to the classroom, stealing her courage. Despite everything, she had to press forward. She had to know what was hidden here. The room felt colder as she stepped back inside, the thick dust motes swirling in the pale light, the letters on the floor beckoned her once again, their contents vibrating in her mind. She knelt, picking up one of the yellowed pages. "I saw him," it read in frantic scrawl, "in the basement, he won T let us go." Ellen's eyes widened. The basement? It was the last place she wanted to go. But this was no longer just about cleaning, it was survival, a fight against shadows that thrived on fear. With trepidation, she made her way down the narrow staircase that led to the dark bowels of the school. Each step creaked ominously under her weight. The air grew stale and heavy. She hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, the darkness beyond swallowing her whole. But she couldn't turn back now. A flicker of her phone's flashlight cast a weak beam, illuminating the floor strewn with discarded papers, broken furniture, and something darker that glistened in the light. Blood? Panic surged in her throat. Was she truly willing to risk it all? For a moment, she considered abandoning everything and running, but the thought of her children, of what they would think if she turned coward, held her firm. Pushing deeper into the blackness, she breathed in the acrid smell of mildew and decay, her feet crunching on something fragile, tiny bones. Her stomach churned. Behind her, the door slammed shut as a gust of wind screamed through the basement, locking her in. Her breath quickened as the whispers intensified, merging into a dirge. Help us, the voices punctuated the darkness. They were no longer whispers, they screamed of a desperation that sent chills crawling up her spine. "Who are you?" She yelled into the void, but the response was nothing, just the echo of her own voice. Something moved in the corners of her eye, shifting just beyond the beam of her light. Then, a silhouette materialized at the far end of the basement, blocking the faint glimmer of light. A figure was there, silent and still, watching her with hollow eyes that seemed to absorb all light. Ellen fought to calm her racing heart, but the panic surged anew. "Get out!" She screamed, wordlessly pleading for whatever it was to leave her in peace. The figure shifted, lowering its head as a chilling laugh echoed through the darkness, and just as swiftly, the figure dissolved into shadows, leaving behind only silence. The whispers began again, but now there was a new urgency. Her name. Ellen come play. She wanted to run, to forget the horrors she'd uncovered, but the pull was too strong. What had she done by exploring the remnants of a forgotten past? Slowly, she stepped forward, compelled by a force beyond reason, the darkness calling her deeper. But unearthing secrets came with a cost. What awaited her in the abyss? Did she dare inch closer to the terrifying truth that lay waiting just out of sight? The atmosphere thrummed with possibilities. What other nightmares could this night unveil? Ellen took another step, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it echoed off the damp walls. The whispers twisted around her, coiling like a serpent, urging her onward. Shadows swirled, melding into clawing fingers reaching out from the corners. She held her flashlight steady, the beam trembling as her hand shook. "Ellen come play." That voice, so sweet yet chilling, sounded closer now, wrapping around her like a shroud. She bit her lip, fighting the well of fear that threatened to spill over. A part of her wanted to scream and turn back, yet another part thrummed with a curiosity ignited by the inexplicable terror. A glimmer caught her eye, something reflecting her light, a broken mirror, its shards lying scattered like teeth on the floor. Ellen stepped carefully, navigating through the debris with a sinking feeling that something was watching her. Kneeling down, she picked up a shard. Her reflection glared back at her, eyes wide with terror, mouth slightly agape as if silently urging her to escape, but something in the dark beckoned, a pull stronger than her instincts. The whispers crescendoed again, forming a cold chorus that chilled her skin. Help us, help us." It was as if the very air was filled with fragments of desperation, weaving a web that threatened to ensnare her as well. Ellen moved deeper into the basement, the flashlight flickering, struggling against the encroaching darkness. She found herself in a narrow hall with doors lining the walls, some ajar, creaking softly as if inviting her to peer inside. Each crack revealed inky blackness that promised secrets and horrors beyond measure. She paused, listening. A distinct scratching noise emerged from the door directly ahead. It was intermittent, scratching that sent electric jolts down her spine. She gripped the flashlight tighter, edging closer. Whatever was behind that door was desperate, begging for release. Or perhaps they were looking for a new host. With a swift motion driven by impulse, she turned the knob. The door creaked open to reveal a small room. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of rot. As she swept her beam across the floor, she saw what lay beyond the threshold. Stacked up against the walls were old, crude drawings, faintly illuminated by her light images of children, faces twisted in terror, mouths open in silent screams, her breath caught. What happened here? She whispered, her throat tightening. A sudden movement made her jerk back. A white face emerged from the shadows, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes peering into hers. Ellen stumbled back, colliding with the doorframe, panic surging through her like wildfire. "Stay away!" she screamed, heart racing out of control. But the figure only tilted its head, mouthing silent words, beckoning her closer. The temperature dropped, a bone-chilling frost creeping into the room. In a moment of clarity, Ellen darted out of the room and down the hall. She could feel eyes watching her from every direction, the pressure heavy against her chest. The whispers morphed into a cacophony of shrieks, urging her to leave, to flee before it was too late. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the basement as a door slammed shut behind her, trapping her. The oppressive darkness thickened, swallowing her light, leaving her in an inky void. Her breath quickened, panic clawing at her mind. She was not alone, whatever pursued her lurked just beyond her vision. Ellen pressed her back against the wall, feeling the rough surface scrape her skin. What was she facing? And how could she ever escape? The atmosphere seemed to pulsate around her, rising with an urgency that played on her very sanity. "Ellen, help us!" The voices grew insistent, more aggressive. She felt the edges of despair creep in. What if she couldn't leave? Would she become just another whisper in the darkness? With terror ripping through her veins, she pressed forward into the shadows. Yet, she was painfully aware that the deeper she went, the more danger lurked behind her, waiting to claim her as one of its own. But what truly waited at the heart of the darkness? What awaited her in the abyss of secrets buried long ago? The only certainty was the growing sensation that time was running out. Ellen's pulse raced as she stumbled further into the darkness, the flashlight flickering in a fight against the shadows. Each step felt heavier, as if the air itself conspired to pull her back. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes, hungry and restless, watching from the corners of the blackened walls. Ellen, the voice, sweet yet tainted with malice, curled around her like smoke. She shook her head, desperately trying to drown out the sound. The walls seemed closer now, squeezing in on her, the oppressive silence broken only by her quickening breath and the faint scratching that echoed in the room. She felt her sanity begin to unravel, fraying at the edges like an old, torn fabric. With every flash of her light, the fractured mirror surfaces reflected terrifying glimpses of herself surrounded by flickering shadows. Was she truly alone? Or had she become part of the ghostly chorus? The whispers grew too loud, clawing at her mind. "Join us, be with us." She made her way down the narrow hall, its suffocating quality closing in around her. Light shattered briefly off something glimmering at her feet, a small, rusted key. It was a stupid thing, but it felt oddly significant. Maybe it was a clue, a way out. Gritting her teeth, she pocketed it, unwilling to let despair snatch her hope. As she approached another door, she hesitated. The whispers seemed to shift in tone, a melodic chant that tugged at her resolve. "Ellen, come closer." She held her breath and yanked the door open, ready for anything. Inside, she found an old classroom, dust motes dancing in her frantic beam of light. Desks were overturned, chalkboards filled with scrawled messages of madness and fears. The air vibrated with a heavy energy, almost tangible. At the front of the room, something caught her eye, a weathered doll, sitting alone on a desk, its glassy eyes fixed on her. Ellen felt a sickening chill creep up her spine as the doll suddenly blinked. No, no, no. She stumbled back, but the whisper coiled around her, urging her to pick it up. Gripped by terror and fascination, she reached for the doll, her fingers trembling as they grazed its cloth face. Ellen, we've been waiting. The room shook. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the walls began to ripple like water. Behind her, a pulsing light flickered, illuminating the horrid, twisted drawings on the walls. They came alive, writhing in grotesque motion. Shadows elongated, stretching toward her, fingers searching. Ellen's heart thundered as she rushed toward the exit, the door slamming shut with a deafening crack. The realization crashed over her. Shadows curled and flickered, forming faces that twisted in agony, a bleak gallery of pain. She pressed against the door, pounding on it with desperation, but nothing budged. The scratching rose to a fevered pitch around her, turning into a symphony of screams that rattled her bones. Suddenly, she noticed a glimmer on the floor, the key she had found. Without thinking, she lunged, fumbling to unlock the door as the shadows lunged at her from the corners. Time stretched, every second a lifetime, her pulse in her ears deafening. With a shriek, the door burst open, and Ellen dove through, colliding into the cold, damp hallway. But as she rolled to her feet, she found the whispers had changed. "You can't escape us," they hissed from the depths of the basement. Fingers of fog curled around her legs, pulling. She glanced back, breathless, seeing the classroom door shuddering closed. It vibrated in sync with the echoing voices, alive with a sinister hunger. Ellen spun on her heel, racing down the hall, the key clutched tight in her palm. What did it unlock? What waiting horror would this darkness bestow next? As she turned a corner, her flashlight flickered one last time and wavered out. In total darkness, she heard it, the unmistakable sound of a soft, girlish giggle rising from the depths behind her. What other truths lay buried beneath the shadows? What awaited her in this soul-stealing abyss? Ellen stumbled forward, heart racing, eyes wide as the darkness swallowed her whole. The giggle echoed, chilling her to the bone. What was that sound? Was it real? The flashlight lay dead in her hand, a useless shard of hope, pressing on. She could feel the walls breathing, expanding and contracting, whispering secrets too horrible to comprehend. Each step felt like a betrayal, the floorboards creaking beneath her weight as if warning her to turn back. Yet retreat was not an option. Something sinister was rising behind her, and it was hungry. Ellen. The voice slithered through the air again, sweeter than treacle, lingering with dull promise and despair. Panic surged, and she quickened her pace, adrenaline slicing through the fog of fear. Ellen. The voices converged, merging into a twisted chorus that sang her name like a lament. She rounded another corner and skidded to a halt. Ahead lay a massive door, thick as a tomb, heavy with decay. Its surface was marked with strange symbols, swirling designs that seemed to pulse with muted light. Ellen's fingers trembled as she traced the outline of one symbol with desperate curiosity. The same key burned in her pocket. What if this door was her salvation? Or was it another trap? She forced her heart to settle, reasoning that any chance was better than the creeping shadows behind her. With shaking hands, she removed the key and inserted it into the lock. It fit perfectly, and with a deep breath, she turned it. The door creaked open, a horrific shriek that echoed in the stillness, slashing through her like ice. And then, she saw it. The room was filled with old, rotting toys, dolls with torn faces, stuffed animals with limbs hanging by threads, each more grotesque than the last. The flickering remnants of a child's laughter intertwined with the soft, groaning shadows creeping from the corners of the room. Ellen, a chorus of high-pitched voices surrounded her. "Come play with us," she recoiled, breath hitching in her throat, pulse racing faster than she could contain. The toys shifted, some looking almost alive. Plastic eyes blinked, and she swore she saw one of the dolls grin. The knee-jerk instinct to flee screamed within her, but terror glued her feet to the spot. In the dim light, something caught her eye, a small door behind the tidal wave of toys, barely ajar. It beckoned with dark intensity, mystery swirling along the edges, whispering answers to the horrors that roamed the hall. But first, she had to deal with the hundreds of eyes now watching her. "Join us," the children's voices chimed, a sweet melody laced with sharp threats, as if they hungered for her presence. Ellen felt their pull, something deep within reached for them, a shadow of what she used to be. Taking a few steps back, she lunged for the door before she could second-guess, hoping it led to safety or at the very least, away from the monstrous whimsy surrounding her. But then came the sound, a cacophony of laughter mixed with the shrillery keening of wooden mouths. "Don't leave us!" they cried, a haunting echo that gripped her soul. As she pulled open the door, she saw it led to nothing but darkness. A feeling of wet earth wafted up, the odor of decay wrapping around her like a shroud. Ellen shot a glance back. The toys were now tumbling, shifting, rising like a wave of nightmares, eager to reach her. She squeezed through just as they erupted from their confines, flinging themselves at the opening, hands grasping for her. What lay hidden behind the door, she could not know, but something powerful and chilling loomed in the void, waiting for her next move. Would she take the chance? Or succumb to the twisted fate of those lost within the toy graveyard? Tension coiled like a spring, and Ellen could only wonder what terrors awaited her if she crossed that threshold. As Ellen stepped into the blackness, the door swung shut behind her with a resounding thud that echoed in the void. The sound vibrated through her, a death knell announcing her peril. "Breathe," she told herself. "Just breathe." The air was thick, stifling. It felt alive, curling around her throat like an unseen hand. She strained to see anything, but there was no light, no flicker of hope in this new abyss. The darkness was absolute, an oppressive weight pressing down on her senses. She barely heard it at first, a faint rustle, as if something was moving just beyond her reach. Her heart pounded louder, drumming an urgent beat in her ears, drowning out everything else. Ellen stood frozen, every nerve on fire. "Hello?" Her voice trembled, swallowed by the empty space. Silence cocooned her, but the rustling continued, a soft scratch, then a hissing breath that crawled beneath the surface of her skin. Panic surged, clawing at her insides. What was there with her? Suddenly, the darkness shifted, a gust like a wind passing. Shadows flickered at the edge of her vision, playing tricks on her mind. Were they the same twisted toys from the other room? Or something else? The walls felt as if they were closing in, whispering secrets meant for ears far too innocent to understand. Something brushed against her ankle. She gasped, instinctively pulling her legs up as a chill shot up her spine. But it wasn't a toy, it was a string, something taut and delicate that hummed with potential danger. With shaking hands, she slowly knelt, feeling her way. The string led her deeper into the oppressive dark. She followed it, each inch feeling like a descent into madness. The darkness seemed to pulse with life, echoing her frantic thoughts of escape. What awaited her here? The string coiled around her fingers, guiding her reluctantly until she stumbled into something solid, a wall of cold metal. She swatted at the air around her, hoping to find another way through. The rustling intensified, morphing into a more recognizable sound, soft, low laughter. It echoed from somewhere ahead, childlike yet twisted, beckoning her further in. Ellen. Heart racing, she took a cautious step forward, then another. Her fingers brushed against another object, a smooth spherical surface. A ball. She recoiled but pressed on, forcing herself to confront the dreadful surroundings. "Come play with us," the voices sang again, now layered, almost harmonious. Were they the children from the toy room? It felt impossible. They were all some eldritch echo, twisted reflections, and yet they soothed her in the most terrible way. But the laughter shifted, darkening its tone. The whispered promises began to chill her, trapped forever with the dolls, the carpet snagging at her feet, the children's fingers dragging her down. The little voices morphed into a single sinister chorus that hummed with delight. Something tugged at her from behind, a gentle but insistent pull. She twirled around, fighting the urge to scream. A figure flickered just out of the corner of her eye. Maybe a child? Or was it the ghostly reflection of her own fear made manifest? Desperation clawed at Ellen. She couldn't stay here. Not anymore. She grabbed the taut string that wound like a path through the dark, determinedly tugging it forward. But it snapped, whipping back against her wrist, sending a pain coursing through her. From the shadows, hands emerged, small and delicate yet impossibly strong. They grasped at her, their grip turning into iron shackles. Ellen gasped, gasping as she tried to jerk away, dragging herself backward with sheer will. But the laughter surged, tantalizing and desperate. "Stay with us." Forever her heart raced with dread, swirling thoughts of retreat and consequence. What was she willing to give to escape this torment? With a final scream of courage, she bolted forward, plunging deeper into the void. And then she stumbled into a room lit by flickering, ghostly lanterns hanging from a crooked ceiling. Shadows danced, revealing walls covered in frayed portraits of children, all staring with hollow eyes that seemed to follow her every move. What lay behind those faces? Were they smiling, or were they crying? As she pressed onward, the floorboards groaned beneath her, awakening horrors yet unknown. The whispers grew louder, enveloping her in a terrifying melody. But then, in the flickering light, she caught sight of something, a reflection in a cracked mirror on the wall. It was dark and writhing, the image shifting like quicksand. And that was when she knew, she would have to face whatever it was staring back. Would it be her downfall? Or had she found a way to reclaim hope amidst the shadows? The figure in the mirror beckoned, and Ellen felt herself drawn closer. As Ellen leaned closer, that writhing figure suddenly peeled away from the glass, leaving behind a swirl of shadows that danced in the flickering light. A gasp caught in her throat like a stone, blocking her breath. She stepped back instinctively, pulse racing in the thickened air. "Face it." The voice whispered, chilling her bones. It was deeper now, echoing off the walls, heavy with anticipation. For a heartbeat, the darkness felt less like a void and more like a living entity, eager to swallow her whole. The portraits on the wall loomed larger, their hollow eyes seeming to deepen with sorrow, rage, and something akin to hunger. Each frame encased a child, their faces twisted in fear or despair, as if they had tried to escape just as she had. Ellen's gut twisted with dread. There had to be a way out. Or was this her end? Wrapped in a tapestry of lost souls, she turned to scan the room, searching for an escape. When she noticed the children's laughter seeping from the walls, twisting together like vines, straining to reach her. "Play with us," they sang, a haunting melody that pierced the darkness. It was both a promise and a threat, luring her in with childlike joy while simultaneously wrapping her in a shroud of terror. Ellen stumbled back to the mirror, drawn to it despite herself. The surface pulsed like a heartbeat, dark and enticing. "What do you want?" she whispered, words barely escaping her lips. The mirror didn't respond. It simply shimmered, showing glimpses of moments she couldn't recognize, her life, distorted through the glass, twisted into something grotesque. "Show me," she shouted, pushing forward. The air shifted, cool tendrils creeping up her arms and filling her lungs with a paralyzing freeze. The mirror moaned in response, reflecting flashes of her past, but not of her choosing, lost memories of running through sun-drenched afternoons, laughter with friends now lurking just beyond the frame, and a dark figure watching from a distance. The realization struck her. The reflection wasn't merely a captive image, it was a masquerade for something much more sinister and real. It was an invitation into madness, a doorway to become one with the darkness she had so desperately tried to escape. Then, without warning, her own reflection began to change. It twisted and morphed, her eyes hollowing out like those portraits, while a sinister grin etched itself across her face. Panic seized her anew. "No!" she screamed, dragging her eyes back to the room. The laughter swelled around her, weaving through her mind, entangling her thoughts. They were trying to ensnare her to join them in eternal play. Ellen's heart raced, the walls pulsing as if alive, licking at her heels. "I won tea!" she shouted, forcing herself to tear away from the mirror. But the laughter grew louder, rising in pitch, drowning her thoughts in a cacophony of joy-tinged madness. Her feet found momentum as she raced toward the far corner of the room, where shadows coalesced into a thicker darkness. Desperately, she clawed at the wall, searching for any crack or crevice that could lead her to freedom. Then she spotted a barely visible door silhouetted against the flickering shadows. Without thinking, she lunged toward it, praying it wasn't a trap but a real chance to escape. As she yanked the door open, a gust of icy wind rushed past her, igniting her skin with sensations of dread and longing. But just before she could cross the threshold, the laughter ceased, replaced by a low, growling whisper. "Stay with us forever." Ellen's heart dropped. She hesitated, straddling the line between two worlds, one filled with dark promises of joy and eternal play, the other leading to unknown horrors. As she stood in the doorway, a figure stepped into the light. A child, pale and translucent, watched her with despairing eyes. "Don't go. They'll take you," it warned, voice trembling, but the shadows lurked behind it, hungry and expectant. Ellen's mind raced as she fought against the urge to step back into the twisted laughter of children and the ghastly comfort they offered. She needed to decide, but how could she? What awaited her on the other side, the comfort of companionship or an eternity of darkness? And then the choice was taken from her as the door creaked wider. What would she face if she stepped beyond that threshold? The door swung open, revealing a world shrouded in chaos. The air outside was thick with fog, swirling like a tempest. It wasn't a place of safety, it felt cold, mirroring the chilling atmosphere behind her. The pale child stood rooted at the threshold, eyes wide with terror. It reached out, fingers trembling, but the shadows behind it seemed to ripple, hungry for her. "Don't!" the child implored, voice cracking. "It's worse out there. They'll find you." Ellen's heart raced as her gaze darted between the swirling darkness and the pale figure. She knew the shadows were deceitful, lurking with malicious intent. But what awaited her in the fog? The laughter began creeping back, whispering secrets that curled around her mind like smoke. "Join us, Ellen." Play forever. With a shaky breath, she stepped back, nearly slamming the door closed. The icy wind swept around her, so real, yet so unnatural. As she turned, the child had vanished, replaced by shadows roiling against the wall, writhing in excitement. She needed to choose, but panic clenched her chest. She didn't want to leave, yet she didn't want to stay. "Ellen," a voice hissed from the darkness. "You belong to us." Screaming, she slammed the door and stumbled back. The mirror hummed, reflecting her fear. What was she? Just another lost soul in this grotesque gallery? The laughter exploded into a frenzied cacophony, vibrating through her bones. It became impossible to think. Escape felt just out of reach. The walls pulsed as if the building itself breathed, anticipating her next move. Underneath that anticipation lay a promise, not the sweetness of childhood joy but a sinister pact. Determined, Ellen focused on the other door, the cold fog just beyond it. What if she faced whatever lingered out there? Wasn't it her only option? One deep breath and she turned back to the door. Each step built the momentum of her fear and anticipation. And then it happened. The room shook, the ground beneath her feet trembling. Shadows erupted from the walls, stretching toward her, grasping, fingers curling like claws. "Ellen!" they called, a disharmony of childlike voices layered with urgency and seduction. Stay with us." She grabbed the doorknob, icy and slick, knuckles whitening as she gripped it tighter. "Let me go!" she shouted, her voice swallowed by the roar of shadows. In a moment of desperate clarity, she flung the door wide open. The fog rolled in, thick and impenetrable, and she stepped through, falling into a world of nothingness. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, the laughter swelled again, full of glee and malice. It was as if she had broken a seal, releasing a flood of voices and curling shadows. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears as she stumbled forward. The fog enveloped her, yet she saw faces peeking through, children, their expressions twisted, eyes glimmering with predatory glee and a sense of dreadful longing. "Help us!" they cried, unison woven from pain and madness. "You can't escape." Why are you here?" Ellen gasped, drowning in the whispers. "Because, you chose to play," a chorus of voices echoed back, tantalizing and mocking. "You chose to join us, didn't you?" With every step, the ground beneath her felt less solid, shifting like a living entity, ready to pull her down. But Ellen saw a flicker in the distance, a light, glinting like hope amid despair. Maybe there was a chance. She could reach it. But then she felt it, a cold grip encircling her ankle, yanking her down. Panic clawed at her throat as she struggled against the darkness pulling her into its depths. "Stay with us," the shadows whispered, tightening their grip. What was waiting for her at that glimmer of light? Was there really hope, or was it just another cruel trick to lure her deeper into the abyss? The tugging grew stronger, urging her back into the silent embrace of shadows and overwhelming laughter. Ellen fought hard, unsure if she could keep her footing. But she had to know, was there a way out? Or was this darkness her only future? Ellen gasped, her heart pounding as the grip around her ankle tightened further, pulling her into the damp, swirling fog. The laughter grew louder, as if all the lost souls were closing in on her, feasting off her growing fear. Desperation surged through her. No! She wouldn't be another victim. Not here. Yanking her foot free, she staggered forward, lungs burning for breath as she sprinted toward the flickering light. The ground shifted beneath her, a treacherous mirage, but Ellen pressed on, her determination overriding the panic. The voices morphed into a fevered chant, harmony discordant as they echoed her thoughts. "You can't escape." "Shut up!" she screamed, her voice lost in the tumult. Yet, the light pulsed, drawing her closer, flickering like a heartbeat, a beacon in this relentless void. As she approached, the shadows writhed and recoiled, screeching in unity, "No! Come back! You chose us!" They lashed out, fingers stretched like claws, scrambling toward her. Then she reached the light. A small, golden portal opened before her, shimmering, casting warmth that felt foreign in the cold grip of the fog. But just as her hand stretched toward safety, a chilling laugh cut through the air, sharp and cruel. "Do you truly believe you can escape, Ellen?" The voice belonged to the pale child, now cloaked in shadow, eyes shimmering with malice. "You think they will let you go?" Ellen hesitated, the light before her wavering like a mirage. "Let me pass!" she yelled, her voice tinged with desperation. The child's laughter deepened, echoing around her. "Passage requires a price. What do you want from me?" she shouted into the fog, anger flaring like a match in the dark. "I won't give you anything." The shadows recoiled momentarily, confusion flickering through their ranks. "You already have," the child hissed back. "You fled here, didn't you? You chose to play." Ellen felt her resolve waning as icy fingers caressed her shoulders, whispering promises of eternal play. "I didn't," but her words faltered, the truth creeping in. She had chosen this path, playing into their twisted game. Rage surged anew, fueling her fight. "You're wrong. I can break this cycle." Darting for the portal, she felt the presence of shadows surge toward her. Ellen leapt, arm thrusting into the warm glow as it consumed her in a blinding light. For a moment, it felt like freedom. She was weightless, floating, the laughter fading into oblivion. But just as quickly, the sensation shattered. Ellen was thrown into another realm, a room similar to the one she'd left, but filled with peeling wallpaper and broken furniture. A sense of déjà vu washed over her like a wave. She spun around, breathless, realizing the shadows had followed. They swarmed the room, saturating every corner, their faces distorting into children's forms, laughing and taunting her. "Thanks for playing, Ellen. Her heart sank, she was back where it all began. The walls pulsed again, alive with anticipation. With no other choice, Ellen dashed toward yet another door, hope flickering like the light she had just escaped from. "I will find a way out," she cried out as the shadows lunged. There was a final clash of sinister laughter, the whispers rising to a crescendo, drowning her in despair. As she threw herself against the door, she felt a sudden sharp pull, a tether from the shadows dragging her back. "You belong to us," they murmured, a cacophony of yearning. Had she truly escaped at all? Or was this her eternal prison? Ellen faced the door, hands trembling on the knob. What lay beyond? Fingers creeping over her shoulder warned her. What if this was the last door she opened? "Your time will come, Ellen. You can never leave." Would she find liberation in the next room, or was every passage just a trap woven tighter around her? The door creaked slowly, echoing like a whisper in the silence. Ellen gripped the knob hard, feeling the cold metal bite into her palm as she hesitated. She could sense the shadows swelling around her, waiting, hungry with anticipation. Just a door, she breathed softly, trying to convince herself. But fear snaked through her stomach. What if this led to even worse darkness? Taking a deep breath, she flung the door open and stumbled inside. The atmosphere shifted instantaneously. She was in a hallway, crumbling and long forgotten, each step sending echoes stretching into the darkness behind her. This place felt different. The shadows clung to her, restless, but something else lingered in the air. Hope. She caught sight of something ahead, a dim light flickering at the end of the corridor. Ellen felt her heart pounding in time with her footsteps, pulling her forward despite the voices behind her, twisting into a dissonant chant. "You won't escape. You chose this," they cried, taunting her like a childhood ghost rising from memory. Ignoring the call, she pressed on, guided by that pinprick of light. The walls here seemed to whisper instead of scream, inviting her deeper. Trusting her instinct, she reached the end of the hallway, finding an old, weathered door. It felt different, more solid, as if it might offer her something real. Once again, she gripped the knob, twisting it with urgency. The door swung open, revealing a sunlit field bathed in golden warmth. Ellen gasped, blinking as her eyes adjusted. The sweet scent of grass filled her lungs, drowning out the musty odor of the shadows. It felt impossibly alive. This couldn't be real, could it? But there, beneath that radiant sky, were children smiling, laughing, playing freely. "Join us," they sang sweetly, their voices like music. Ellen felt something inside her thaw, a flicker of long-buried joy stirring. Were these the lost spirits of the playground she had seen earlier? Were they free of the shroud of darkness? She stepped outside, and a wave of warmth enveloped her. The laughter echoed in her ears, filling her with a deep longing to belong. But even as joy washed over her, the whispers lingered, clawing at her mind. "You can't hide from your past. They will come for you." A chilling breeze swept through the field, and Ellen turned, her heart dropping. The darkness was creeping along the edges of the light, a shadowy tide rising. She could hear the familiar laughter building, rising to a chaotic crescendo. The shadows that had pursued her so relentlessly were returning, threatening to drown her in despair once again. "No!" she shouted, her voice stronger than before. The darkness halted for a moment, hesitating like a wolf at the edge of the woods. "I want to be part of your game," she declared, taking a step back toward the door. A surge of courage enveloped her. She turned her back on the inviting warmth and the hollow laughter beckoning her to stay. Ellen sprinted away from the golden light, heading back down the hallway. The shadows rippled angrily, undulating towards her, reaching out with claws of darkness. She felt their icy grasp grazing her ankles as she fled, the echoes of their pain wailing around her. "I'm breaking free," she cried, determination surging. She pushed through the door, found herself back in the eerie school corridor, and slammed the door shut behind her. Breathing heavily, she spun around to face the hallway, feeling the walls close in around her. The oppressive weight of darkness throbbed with rage, but her heart was resolute. Enough. The word came out like a battle cry. She marched down the hall, ready to confront whatever horrors lay ahead. The shadows twisted violently, desperate to retreat into the farthest corners. You don't control me anymore. Ellen forced herself forward, her very presence igniting a fury deep within. Boldly now, she advanced toward the basement door, forcing it open, but instead of fear, she felt a rush of liberation. The chains that had held her captive were breaking, splintering into nothingness. As she walked into that darkened space, the shadows erupted, shrieking, "You can't take this from us." But Ellen knew then that she could. She wouldn't allow the darkness to shape her anymore. "Leave me!" she shouted, and with that cry, a light flared inside her, a brilliant flame fueled by every moment of sorrow, pain, and despair she had ever endured. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in frustration as she stepped deeper into the basement, each step pushing back against the clinging night. In that moment of clarity, she began to understand the truth. This place thrived off fear, off the moments that bound her. But she had power, the power to reject the darkness, to choose the light. Ellen raised her arms, and as she spoke, the darkness began to dissolve. "I will not be defined by you. I am strong. I am free." And with each word, the room reverberated, sending shockwaves through the shadows. They screeched in rebellion, but with a final scream, they began to dissipate into thin air, swallowed by the warmth of hope that surged through her. Finally, the oppressive weight lifted. Ellen stood panting in the now silent basement, awash in light that poured through cracks in walls. She had escaped the depths of despair, and now she could finally embrace her own future. She turned, stepping back into the corridor, finding herself wrapped in sweet relief. The light illuminated her path forward, and she could feel the echo of new, uncharted laughter waiting just outside. "Goodbye," she whispered to the shadows, voice firm but calm. And as she moved toward the exit, vitality coursing through her veins, she knew it was the end of one haunting chapter. A new life awaited. She was finally free, and now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. We're counting on you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your engagement makes all the difference. Let us keep this community alive.